either way, this matchup between two good buddies is a very juicy one. A lot of fireworks when these two play, and clearly it's very important for the outcome of the TWL division. So we just saw Josh. We're probably just waiting for Jackson to finish and sit down, and away we'll go with round 18. So once again, just teasing my Twitch chat contest. If anybody else wants to predict what the players will designate the blanks, you can win absolutely one-of-a-kind fabulous prizes. I've already written down a bunch of your predictions, but predicting the blanks is open until the first blank is drawn.
Or when one player hits 100 points.
Yeah, we don't want to wait too long, because if you wait, you could get an advantage if the board is in such a state that the blank would have to be an S or something.
It looks like a standings update. Jackson just beat Rafi Stern by 33 points. So we are actually going to see the top two players in the standings in this round. Josh and Jackson both are 13-4. Jackson has a plus 856 spread. Josh has
they're the only
13s. And then Joey Malik is breathing down their neck at 13-4 with a slightly lower spread than Jackson.
Gotcha.
So within 200 spread points of each other. Ori actually is also 13-4, but with a lower spread. And then Rafi's 12-5, but a huge spread still. We saw that yesterday. His spread is still over 1,500. So,
wow. So he's
so those five are all in good shape, and whichever one can kind of win 2 or 3 of their last 3 games
should take this thing down and become the next in the following line of champions in the TWL division. These are the former winners. You see Jesse 3 times. That's really one of the more amazing feats of multi-day accomplishment, to win 3 of these tournaments in a row, especially at that point where really the majority of the action was in the TWL division. Now, for example, Jesse is competing in Collins. So not to diminish... also, for example, Jackson and Josh were not really in the upper echelon in 2012, 13, and 14, and now they are clearly elite players.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is Jesse, going into the last day of the 2015 one, he was up on the field. I think he was up 2 games on the field with 3 games left.
That's amazing. Did he quickly finish it off, or he almost lost?
The 2015 one. So that was the one I
very nice. Yeah.
Beat him 2 of the last 3 games, and then he lost his other game, and I tied my other game to win by half a game.
That is amazing. What an epic story. And we see Jackson sitting down. You'll all notice that Morris Greenberg is in the list I just posted, and Will Anderson is not. So make of that what you will.
As I always say, Will's won a much bigger tournament in New Orleans, and that was the 2017 North American Scrabble Championship. So
that is irrelevant to the discussion of the Crescent City Cup.
And for those keeping tally at home, I was the teetotaler back then when I won it. So teetotaling success is for sure.
Oh, we have a good question. Please explain what spread is. Sure. So basically, spread is the tiebreaker that is used in Scrabble tournaments when, as you see in this game, both players have 13 wins. So we use spread to break the tie when players have the same number of wins. And basically, it means how many more points did you score than your opponents. So if Josh beat his... in his 17 games, if he scored 1,000 more points than his opponents, and in Jackson's 17 games, if he scored 500 more points than his opponents, Josh would be ahead in the standings.
And specifically, it matters in 2 ways. One is the final standings, right? prizes will be based on what place you come in. The other thing is pairings, actually. Scrabble tournaments are paired based on the current standings, and usually in big tournaments, it's usually like the top 8 or top 12 are often paired with each other. So standings does matter for pairing purposes as well.
Ooh, so Jackson, just for all you Collins heads out there, Jackson cannot bingo right now. I know you probably think he can, but he can't. He's going to have to fish his A or play Ma or something. And Josh, with a nice looking set of tiles, he would have post heat through the E, but that's not coming down. Top hats. I think even Josh Sokol, the master of phoning, knows that that's not a word. What would you?
I could see him trying it, and against Jackson, they both like their phoning. They could.
They do. What would you do with this opening rack? Do you think? Would you exchange A or play Ma, or just do one of those two things as quickly as you can to avoid wasting time?
I'd probably just play Ma. I sort of like playing through that. Like exchanging one usually to exchange right after, actually, just because they don't want to give you any extra letters to play through.
If you were Josh
playing
Sokol, you could also simply play A on the center star, which Josh has done, and that is an
True.
illegal. That is an illegal move. You must play a 2-letter word or more.
We're getting some good puns in the stream. Someone said I would yo-yo, then play Ma.
Very nice. Very unsurprising that Diane would come bringing the heat with excellent puns. One of the punniest people I know. Yeah, in my opinion, he's wasted too much time on this move, unless he's, I don't know, trying to think, am I missing a bingo, or wonder if the two Collins words that are in there are TWL. He should have made a choice already, in my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, I think Jackson's game with Rafi took a while. It looks like he literally sat down basically right after it finished. So it might be it's like a combination of just getting his nerves settled, right, being on stream and stuff. Right. And so if it's a highly probable rack and Jackson's also studied Collins before, he might just want to take this extra minute or two just to make sure that he's thinking clearly and can set himself right for the game.
So he opts to exchange A. I think Jackson, having looked at his games before, he is more apt to exchange. So I probably would have predicted that. I didn't say that. So you can all say, well, why didn't you say that before? And you'd be correct. But I was expecting exchange A, and it did happen. And Josh is going to be able to make a pretty nice defensive play that he has set up of just PHT. Hopefully I said that right. Very nice. That had much more of a flourish. Something like that is maybe not. So you can see Josh is thinking, well, how do I respond best to an exchange one? That is certainly, this is the sort of situation where you really cannot rely on Quackle at all, because Jackson's leave strength is so much significantly stronger than random that you need to account for that with your own decision making. I should really explain that further for anyone that's so. So newcomers to the stream, you can see the score in the center, right above the clock, and the unseen tiles. As Josh, I like this play that he's made here of PHT. Those parts of the interface are from a piece of software called Quackle, which is a Scrabble artificial intelligence. We use that to analyze our games and see if we've missed any plays. But one of the features that you use is you can actually simulate a play and see how it performs against other plays. And those simulations are often very reliable, but often they don't take into account what your opponent has played. And sometimes they don't give your opponent enough credit for having really good letters. So hopefully that's understandable for what I was trying to say.
And
Um,
someone in the chat actually said they think Jackson was maybe playing mind games with Josh by taking the extra minute or two. I actually wouldn't put it past them because they've played each other so many times. Jackson could think maybe I want to signal I have a blank or something.
That's a good point. Yeah, if you're looking for a matchup where the two players have a lot of history together, you couldn't do much better than these two, who are constantly traveling to tournaments together, playing casual games together. So it's definitely a matchup where the players know each other very well, and they know each other's strengths and weaknesses and how to capitalize. So Jackson plays his bingo of Martins. That looks fine to me. And Josh has Outlast. And yes, he can play it with Ohm and Uta, um, which I suppose I like better than Outlasts to the S of Martins. What do you think about that, Morris?
Yeah, I mean, what's the point difference for those two? It's point difference.
1 point. 71 for paralleling with Ohm and 70 for playing to the S of Martins.
Yeah, so I think it makes sense to sort of just take the one fewer point and not leave it quite as volatile. But I can see either argument here.
Yeah, I guess the downside of playing it down low is that it still does yield some pretty damaging plays to the triple. So Josh has sacrificed even more points,
Oh,
3 points,
that looks good
to
to me.
take out the double lane and the very strong scoring spot to the triple. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that. That one, right, for 3 fewer points, it makes things significantly less variant.
Yeah, I think it's really much harder for Jackson to score well after that play if he doesn't have a bingo to the S, which he clearly doesn't. Might be getting ready to have a swear word here. I'm sure we can say that word, but why do it if we don't have to? We know what he's thinking about playing. Oh, he might get us off the hook and play fem and
He's keeping all those letters. But yeah, fem looks pretty good. And I think it looks better than playing the E to make theme.
Yeah, I think I would. I don't know. Does it really? Does keeping the E really improve that leave tremendously? I mean, I might be.
Having a vowel there with all those high point consonants is usually a good thing, I think, just because, right, even though there's sometimes ability to.
I definitely agree, but is it 4 points better?
I would lean towards yes, just because the worst case scenarios are you'd actually have to like exchange or significantly take a significantly fewer points just to get rid of some of those consonants. Whereas if you have that one vowel, at least you will be guaranteeing yourself a certain amount of points.
That's fair. I think my gut instinct is that I would play it just because I don't. I feel like the swear word through the U at a minimum is likely to be there just to dump those. And I feel like Josh's logical next play would be an overlap of fem and not in the Toloates area. But I would concede that it's very close to a coin flip or 50-50 situation than an obvious one way or another.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I think it's pretty close. I tend to lean towards fem, but I could see the logic of playing the E as well.
And I'm sure that's what he's deliberating on right now.
Yeah, the chat also point out Fleck as an option. Only an option, although I think I'd prefer keeping the C and the K in this situation. They're both together. They have some synergy. And
Boy, I
you
don't
could
know if
probably
I want to put the K in the triple lane. It immediately just makes the board like that is easily the best place to score points, whereas just playing fem doesn't offer a great new place to play. I don't want to give easy K points. There's so many racks that clunky racks that just become crushers after Fleck. So I think it just is a little bit lacking defensively for scoring plays, but if not for that, I would like it better.
and it looks like Jackson's really taking his time here again. Jackson, we've seen two different turns now, him really taking a lot of time, and so that could matter.
So
As it
let's
gets more and
spend
more
a
towards the
let's spend a moment thinking about Kef underneath Tolowaits, which is another option we haven't talked about. He does end up playing Fem without the E, which was the Morris choice. I think that's fine. I just want to make a shout out to Kef under Tolowaits, which looks like a pretty nice play because it sets up your second F for potential scoring plays if you get the right draw.
You're saying making off?
Yeah, off, yes. That classic pronunciation of that word.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
D-Wax comes down instantly.
Block that.
It would have blocked that.
WL at least.
Were we seeing Tef off of the? We were thinking Tef off of the T of Tolowaits there. That's interesting. I didn't think of that one either. So a lot of ways to go on that turn, but for Josh, not too many ways. He had to play D-Wax, which well, I guess he could have just played Wax, right? He didn't have to play his D and E if he wanted to keep a better leave. But I think I favored D-Wax as well.
Yeah, I'd probably favor D-Wax, but that is a good point that it's keeping the D and the E with the B and the U significantly improves the leave. So 8-point sacrifice. That's probably more like a 4 3-point sacrifice once you account for leave. It looks like Jackson sort of responds nicely with fake directly below it.
Yeah, fake, not much to discuss there. That was definitely correct. So we see a score of 138 to 136, completely even. Both players have traded bingos. I guess technically, given that Josh went second, he's kind of just barely snuck ahead in that he now has tempo. But
right, and also, I just as a reminder, I guess that means the blank challenge has been locked in since both players are over 100 points now.
That's correct. I've got a whole bunch of great guesses for
can
what
I
the
put in
blanks
the
will be.
W again? I forgot to submit.
That we'll just assume that you are always guessing those two letters. Well, you could tell me if you want to change that.
Okay, I'll go MW.
So Josh is sitting with two B's, no good vowels. What to do? Alex suggests sublot. Matthew says maybe Bob. Maybe Bog or Gob if you want to get the G off. If I think in the spot where you're thinking of Bob, I think I probably dislike the G enough that I would play Bog over Bob.
I wouldn't be shocked if Josh plays Bubo, Bubo, just off of the F and Fem, making of, just because that really looks like the last good bingo lane for sevens. Josh sort of thinking, right, we saw him yesterday close off kind of a clearly best bingo lane. Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
now, or setting it up at least.
Well, the difference here is in that situation he was up by 70 or 80, and in this situation it's very close to an even game. So I do not like throwing away. I mean, it's actually not that different on equity, so I don't mind it as a play, but I don't want to throw nearly as much equity as he was throwing away in those
Right,
situations. In this situation, I think he needs
right.
to
I
play
think
a
that's right.
little closer to standard points and leave. Okay, we like that play, I think, of Bob.
Yeah.
Just score a decent amount, and that B is not terribly dangerous in the triple lane. It's very difficult to hit it that hard. So I don't mind that play. And what has he drawn? He's drawn, well, not terribly, but we'll see what Jackson does.
Yeah. It should be interesting. I think you're right, though. Sacrificing a ton of equity like Josh did yesterday, I think it actually made a lot of sense in that situation, was really savvy. But yeah, Bubo in this case would have been only a slight sacrifice in equity in a situation where even though the game is tied, if you're holding bad letters, you just kind of want to make sure you can keep up scoring wise. So if you can't score that much, what's one way to make sure you can keep up scoring wise? Play a bit of defense. Make sure your opponent can't score a bunch either.
So we had votes for club, and that's what was played. I think, yeah, there were some higher scoring maybe plays like Spruce and Scruple from the S of Martins, but both of those are just super dangerous. I don't think there's any real need for him to gamble like that just yet. So I'm very content with him playing club. What do you think, Morris? That seems right.
I think club or maybe Zeps were the two options there that seem pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think club is even safer than Zeps just because it doesn't offer practically anything. So Josh is kind of working his way. He got his two Bs off of his rack on the previous turn, and he kept something like, I don't remember, it was like GULT, something like that.
Yeah, that's the exact leaf. So we drew
And
GON.
he's going to continue to work his way through these kind of clunky letters. He doesn't have a great place to play. I guess he could blow up his rack a lot, play something like gluten parallel to fem. That would just leave only an O, but at least it would burn 6 tiles. We still have yet to see a blank. And he can't score much better than that anyway.
And Joel pointed out the comedian Paul Provenza. Jackson is one letter off from him.
Now that
right now.
would be the ballsiest phony of all time.
Provenzale off of the ALE. And that's on the board. But
yeah,
we'll play it if an A becomes actually an A can't become available. So definitely not going to play it, but would have been cool if he tried that. So yeah, so Will was talking about playing long. He could play something like Tout here also.
Tout looks pretty good. Yeah, what's wrong with Tout? Both players are just seeing no need to open unnecessarily. Ooh, didn't see that play coming, but it's pretty nice. The nice thing about this is if he were to draw one of the many, many eyes, actually, amazingly, there are no eyes on the board. Not a single one is on the board. So if he were to get one, he's threatening an ING play to the G of Gutte that he's just hung out in space. So that looks pretty good, actually.
That's a very savvy play and kind of shows why Josh like finds ways to win games. That's really putting his N. It makes it a lot more valuable given the board.
And
Jackson
proven,
plays
yeah,
proven.
proven that seems fine. Keeping the Z, that probably has best equity. And oh, yes, we have Alec is going hard for the NOLA prize, given that Josh has NOLA. So if you can predict a word that Josh were to play with those letters, you get points towards my challenge.
To be clear, Josh has to play the word, right?
Yes, that's right. It has to be the word that ends up being played.
I like how Alec is just
Alec,
every
don't
word.
try to confine it to like just a few guesses that you think are really likely to be played as soon as you see them, as opposed to every word. But I love the passion. Love it. Unfortunately, it looks like he's gonna dump some of those NOLA letters. Do we want him, Morris? Do you think he should have played just WON there to retain his IN?
That's a good point. Although with all the eyes out, I think that's not necessarily the worry. The thing I would be worried about is
well, he just drew one.
Spot, right? The spot he sort of created, right? So if an H now is super valuable board wise, right? SH words with the H on that double letter can make it pretty valuable. I guess W's as well. It would have been cool if Josh somehow cleverly figured out a way to keep the W there and set that up. But I don't think that was really possible given the situation.
Yeah. Jackson plays his best play by a mile of Visor. There's simply nothing better than that. Available, scores a ton of points, keeps a good leave. What could go wrong?
I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, he's Josh has now, I think he realizes, he's showing us that he sees that he would have had lanolene through that N of Martins had he not played Wino, which we approve of Wino. The idea of that play is perfectly fine. It's either that or one in that spot was probably the way to go. But that's how Scrabble goes sometimes. That's why we love this silly game. There's a blank. A blank for Jackson. So do you think he'll play through the V? I think that seems...
You're saying like Olive or something? Or
yeah, Olive or Lavo. I think Lavo is a little better to keep the IN together, or if you really think you're going to redraw the I again, you can play Olive.
Yeah, I could see either being right. Lavo, yeah, I agree. Keeping the eyes probably a bit better. It should be fairly close.
Yeah, you can't score much better anywhere else, and Josh is a little now after the last few plays where Josh has had to slug through the Gutte and Wino plays, whereas Jackson had Visor and Proven. Tempo is now back on Jackson's side. And when I say tempo, that's just my term. I think it's somewhat established. I hope it's not just me. Where most of the time in a game where one player has tempo, half of the time the score is tied, and the other half of the time the person with tempo is making their next move to go ahead. But it's very close to a tie game. That's my definition. Would you concur with that, Morris, for tempo?
Yeah, I'd sort of say every time it's your turn, you're going from basically a tie game to having a slight lead. Tempo advantage.
So down goes Olive. No I redraw for Josh. Instead, the hated Q. With this is a very bad board for it. He does
Olive created a QI spot at least.
He does have that. Yeah, he does have that. and that's really it.
Yeah, so now let's turn to Jackson's rack, though. This is now starting to get interesting. So it's a 12-point game, and so he's drawn a blank, so that's nice. But think about how to shape his rack for next turn.
Matthew points out Sin, S-Y-N, making soy, which
Nice idea.
that certainly scores decently well and creates
Patty.
a volatile new lane, as well as a scoring spot, starting with the vowel, which Josh almost has Aquai or something huge, but does not.
So
Patty.
Pat,
Sure,
yeah,
that's
I think
another
that's a good
idea.
option.
Patty leaving GN blank.
I'm not sure which. I'd probably go with Patty here. I don't think opening that triple's that threatening.
Yeah, it's only
I could
gonna.
go either way.
It's. I just don't. If you're looking at the unseen tiles, it's actually amazing that there are very few high point consonants. You've got Q, J, and then a boatload of vowels. It looks like. Am I wrong about that? It's. I guess it's mostly even.
I think it's mostly even. I think there are a lot of low point. There's a lot of N's, R's, S's, T's, those sorts of things.
Yeah, among like 4 point consonants, you have your H and your Y, and that's it. The rest are all used up.
And that will be a point we'll want to monitor throughout the rest of this game. It looks like the bottom left quadrant of the board is going to be hard to do anything with at the end, most likely. But the entire right side of the board, that has a lot of opportunity to open things up. And so, especially as you get closer and closer to the end of the game, all these low point consonants that lend themselves well to bingoing, there might be some bingos in the next few turns.
Yeah, I think I like Patty here. I don't think it has a great downside in terms of giving up a lot of points to Josh. It's just kind of unwieldy to hit that Y, especially in TWL where there's none of those NFK plays that can go up there. So it really would require like Toya or something to play parallel. And obviously he doesn't have that. So Josh is very likely to just dump his Q here. And it looks like Jackson will at least have Syringa and ENS.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
And we have at least one A guess of blank designation.
No way to make that an M, right? Or a W?
I don't know. Maybe he'll miss that and have a different word on his next turn. So, what would Josh do here if not play his Q? I can't really. I guess he could play Nyala through the Y.
Nyala looks okay. Yeah, Nyala I could actually see the merit of. Although there's only one U left, so probably not.
I think you gotta play your Q while you can in an easy way and not have an absolutely atrocious leave. Unfortunately, that leave doesn't hit much. Yeah, and the Q spot doesn't appear to be a high traffic area where you're going to see that many plays.
Someone also says maybe exchange. Sometimes that idea is actually good. Actually, right with the Q, you could try to go for Q sticks. I think here, though, taking 21 points is just too much, right? Josh doesn't know that Jackson is really close to a bingo, so being only that would be 15 points down instead of 36 points down. That's a big difference and puts a lot more pressure on Jackson in a lot of scenarios.
That's a good point. So both players are doing okay on time, but they can't tank too much longer on these mid-game decisions if they want to have a lot of pre-end game time. But I think this is well worth a good think by Josh. He's definitely gesticulating in a pained manner. Ooh, okay. So he's opted to play NOLA.
Interesting. I wonder what the motivation is behind there. I guess he might just be hoping for the best case scenario of drawing the U.
Yeah, and also just um this yeah, NOLA is a play that you could easily imagine plays to the Y, like vowel dumps or something in that corner that wouldn't open a new bingo line that has a little more flexibility. But NOLA at least creates that, and then maybe next turn he can do a Q dump, and then he'll have more realistic chances of hitting a bingo. And also he does have the U as a ooh. Okay, so he drew the J, not what he wanted to see. And this is kind of important with what the blank will be. It could be an A or an E. So I wonder if we'll be able to figure out what that is. I'm guessing it'll be an A for sure, but until we know for sure, I will not award contest points. Or maybe I'll be generous and award them to both. No, just kidding. So that was not what Josh wanted to see. Okay, we are getting confirmation that the blank was an E, which is terrible news for Dungi 2 and great news for Tianza, as he is the only one to have guessed E. Congrats, Matthew.
Scrabble tournament with a sideline reporter in the stream. We have people interviewing the players while they're playing. This is awesome. Next, need the mics, like on NFL games, they now like mic the linebacker or the quarterback or something, and you can listen after the game or even mid-game to what they were saying. For Scrabble, and it would be the least exciting thing ever because they'd just be sitting there and thinking.
Sorry, Fern, just going up and no, it does not have to be in order. And you have to guess two different letters.
So the one somewhat there was for Josh, there was by Jackson playing syringe instead of something like scrying, like G.I. Joe pointed out. He did give Josh a higher point Q spot. So Josh just cashed that in with QI for 37 points, and it's now a 50-ish point game.
Yep, and still a blank out as a lifeline to Josh and as a threat to Jackson. So Jackson trying to protect his lead at all costs. Let's see, if I'm sitting in Jackson's shoes and I'm saying, how can I lose the game? It's certainly by allowing bingos. So he's going to want to try to make a play that stops them. Do we see any good ways for him to do that? He could really burn through a ton of equity and try to play something to the G of Gutte. But I don't know. Not sure I love that idea if you have to totally trash your leave, because certainly he's close to a bingo, and if he gets another one, he'll instantly win.
He could try something like Dose and Visors if he wants to keep scoring.
Yeah, I don't mind that play, actually.
That's 28 points. That puts him about a bingo up, and it closes or significantly limits the NOLA opening Josh created.
Also, the S does not have a spot that jumps out as a huge, easy way to play a 7. I mean, it'll be helpful to keep the S if you want a bingo alongside NOLA, but it's not a must. And also, if you do play dose, you score really well, and you also cripple that spot greatly. And it looks like he's getting ready to do that. I think we approve of that idea.
Is there anywhere else where he could be thinking about playing it? I don't see anywhere right away. But that does not mean that. I guess he could play OES, making YORE and QIS to be even more defensive. Points though.
That's an interesting idea. I hadn't considered that.
That's
Yeah, that's really conclusive.
It's 4 fewer points. My one issue with that, though, is right. You create YO and RE, and with either one letter next to it, and create a really tough lane to block a lot of the time.
Interesting. Plays your. That seems okay, I guess. I mean, that's the sort of play that I make a lot when I have leads in games, and I know it agitates people to see that. But sometimes, you okay there? Sometimes.
Sorry, I coughed.
Sometimes, well, he's just drawn bingos to his own R. And anywhere else? We'll look at that in a second. I'm just going to finish my thought. But even when you're winning, if your tiles are really good, a ton of the time, if you get a bingo down, that's game over. It's kind of like in the NFL, too. I feel like way too many teams punt on 4th and short instead of go for it. And I also feel like a lot of times people block for 2 enormous equity sacrifices instead of going for it. But that's kind of subjective. It's hard
I'm not
to prove.
sure. In scenarios sometimes where you can be proactive about dictating what the game will look like, you do want to sacrifice equity if you're up by enough, but be a bit too concerned with that sometimes, and even paranoid, I think, occasionally. So
as always, it's very situationally dependent.
I actually think I might have liked OES there. It definitely significantly would limit things, but it does give it could give some scary potential setups thereafter, but it does close things down a lot right away.
So we saw when Josh played NOLA that he kept the Q and drew the J. He was fortunate to play his Q for a few more, but now he still has to unload his J before he can really start thinking about bingoing.
And this is going to be key. Josh will need to draw the blank here. I think Jackson will be guaranteed the blank otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Unseen, the blank is in the bag. So after Jackson's bingo, will be
it's
the other blank. And Josh,
very painfully, he
right now.
He had to probably play Joel, but very painfully, he just blocked his own roaching. So I suspect that Jackson knows that bingoing here, there's just no way that Josh will have any response to the E of Olive that can outscore him, I don't think.
Well, actually, this is an interesting turn for Jackson because since there are 7 in the bag, if Jackson bingos, if Josh also has a bingo, he could bingo out and potentially win.
Yeah, but I just don't think it'll be. I don't think it'll be enough points for Josh. Maybe it'll have to be like what we'll try to workshop it out. Like what would his best case scenario be? Josh's, and does it still win? My gut says no.
I don't know. Is there any 8-letter word ending in I that can fit directly below Joel?
Oh, that
would be a lot of points.
That's maybe the way to do it, but that sure doesn't seem likely. So down comes trainees. Josh agonizing over that, not what he wanted to see. Tough one for Josh. Yeah, he's now knows that he's just bingoed with a natural and drawn the second blank. So he'll have to worry a little bit about that in his end game plays. Now it'll be very interesting to see what this blank gets designated as.
Yeah. Try to, since we'll have a bit of time here, let's actually try to see if there was a big play that right. So Josh is now down by 117.
We're talking about from Jackson's perspective. What could Josh have had that plays under the J? I mean, I think that's probably the only way.
Well, I mean, like a play off of the E and olive, what's the highest point bingo there? Would it be something like grouched?
That looks like naturally? that looks like it should be. So let's see what happens.
Points. That would be 7, 11, 12, 14, 28, 31. So 81 and plus, I guess, a bunch of flow point tiles. It would just be plus 12.
Yeah, Jackson is still going to win.
So
Jackson's still going to win by
24 points.
20 or so. Yeah. Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah. Sam points out maybe a humongous overlap underneath fake to the S. Oh, Cicerone. There we go. We've got Matthew pointing out some ideas. Let's see. Let's try that.
Cicerone blank C, I guess, right?
Yeah, Coiner blank. That's still only 82. So it's no. Well, you get more points though.
H and G are in the bag, and D are all in the bag though.
That loses by 11. So we've basically confirmed that from Jackson's POV, just bingoing is completely fine. He's home free after that. Josh has 2 minutes left. If I were in his shoes, I'd probably be kind of disappointed. Not sure how hard I'd be trying to solve the endgame perfectly. I guess he just has to make sure that he's not giving up some kind of bingo if he plays with something with Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely always a tough position where you know you've lost, but you still need to make a play that doesn't give your opponent a huge play thereafter. It's always frustrating.
I would imagine that something with Joe is probably part of whatever the best sequence is. Unless there's something I'm not seeing parallel to trainees.
I'm not seeing anything parallel to trainees. What are you saying, like Racino or something, Joe? I guess I need to. I'm not sure if that would not give any bingos, but
oh, I see what he's doing. Remember the SOH spot? So he's getting ready to play that as his second part. So he plays caring, and then he's going to play SHO and SOH off of Martin's. So that looks like a pretty good sequence.
Yeah. Although Jackson could play Swades right now. There.
Oh, that's fun. And if he were to do that, that would be another E.
Or the blank is an E. We did confirm. So syringe.
Both blanks would be E's. which I know that was my rule that you're not allowed to do that, but amazingly, Lord Livgan guessed that exactly correct. I feel like I should at least recognize that, because that's pretty amazing to guess it exactly right.
Though it looks like Jackson.
I already awarded you your point, Matthew.
Oh, but I think
He
Matt
guessed ES. No, he guessed ES is
he
what
gets
I
only
have. So he gets the point. Yeah. Okay. Good job by Josh to play a pretty solid sequence at the end. But of course, I'm sure, would much rather have won the game. But congrats to Jackson. I think I'm very happy with the way Jackson played this game. I'm not sure I could think of a single thing that I had a major quibble with. The only thing that we even debated was I think. And I guess the fem decision was really a coin flip to me.
I think you're the one play that I didn't love, but I see the logic. From Josh's perspective, very good game as well. I think the NOLA thing, upon reflection, makes sense over QI there. And then plays like Gute, just very aware that that really increases the value of his N, even though he didn't get to cash in on it. So I think Josh is making a lot of the nuanced moves correctly. It just didn't work out for him this game.
I completely agree. So yeah, we have an undesignated blank. That's just how it goes. Yeah, Lord Livgan definitely gets at least 1 point, and you got one in the first round too. So you move up to 2. Yes, Fern, I did. So receiving points for their guess of E in that round were Lord Livgan, Fern, and Matthew O'Connor. And there were no NOLA words, huh? That's
it's like
a
there
shame.
were no NOLA words. So
well, I'm sure we'll get some, hopefully. But anyway, that certainly tightens things up.
And maybe we could just have the live standings up for the viewers at home. That'd be super helpful now as the all tiled up. 100 tiles in there. We maybe can just leave the viewers at home with the standings. And I think we'll be back on in like 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes to do the SW game. And I'm not actually sure who's going to be playing off the top of my head, but we will fill you in shortly.
Yep. Feel free to start getting in those predictions. I will post the rules again. Oops, that's not the rules. That's the winners of TWL. Yep. And as Morris says, we'll be back with you guys in just a bit.